Day 5, Stage 4 on the Santos Tour Down Under. Saturday's stage, the penultimate stage, the stage which was always set to be the Queen stage and the first ever triple ascent of Willunga Hill. However, the stage thankfully did go ahead, but because of extreme temperatures had to be both shortened and all ascents of Old Willunga Hill were taken out. In its place, an early first category climb of Chandler's Hill, which was always in the route anyway, made up the hardest climb of the day. After that, the course followed the same coastal route that would have been taken before climbing Old Willunga Hill, but finishing in the township as it had done 3 years before, up the slight rise for about 2 kilometres to the finish. A hill, but nothing like Old Willunga Hill. The race was waved underway by the race director Stuart O'Grady a whole hour earlier than had already been advertised prior to that. And once again, as is always the way with the Santos Tour Down Under, climbing was straight out of the front door and up into the hills. They were climbing towards McLaren Vale, the second of the big winemaking regions in this week to go with the Barossa. And this was the breakaway that would forge, in the end, the biggest gap that we've had all week, and with good reason. We'll come back to them because this happened. A crucial thing after just a few kilometres of racing. Jonathan Narvaez on the deck, and I hate to say it, but out of the race as well. He was sitting in second place on general classification, just 6 seconds down on Jay Vine, having gone away with Jay Vine, of course, on the stage into Uradla. A terrible thing to happen to any rider, not least when they're in second place on general classification. He is, of course, the defending champion too. It was a really nervous day. The wind had turned up and it was not relenting either, and enough teams were keen to see if they could make the wind turn things for them. Matthew Greenwood was the young Australian in the breakaway, and he was making the most of his time in the King of the Mountains competition. There was another crash as well on the long straight road back towards Willunga, and it was, again, it would mean the end of the race for at least a couple of riders. They pressed on towards Aldinga and Aldinga Beach, where the intermediate sprint point was. It was just that little bit too much, though, in the end for Remy Cavagna, who was suffering in the breakaway. The other rider there, of course, was Luke Plapp. This was a serious breakaway, and Matthew Greenwood was in extremely good company, but showing he was more than up to the task too. Greenwood picked up another 3 points as they went through Willunga, climbing to the finish line again in that King of the Mountains competition. And that was the moment they were caught as well. They were caught just before the final Aldinga Beach intermediate sprint point, and at first we wondered what Soudal-QuickStep were up to. Well, what they were doing was leading out Andrea Recagni, their Italian rider, who was sitting on the same time as Michael Leonard, the Canadian from EF, in the white jersey competition. So by taking the 3 bonus seconds there, Andrea Recagni had moved straight up into the best young riders classification. Really smart move by Soudal-QuickStep, and a snappy sprint by him too. Well, as they were on their way back to Willunga Township and the moderate climb to the finish, it became very obvious we were thinking about a sprint. Sam Watson was well placed, Matthew Brennan was well placed, lots of Brits right there, Ethan Vernon too. Could it be a British winner, we were starting to wonder. They would have to deal with Sam Welsford, who'd won the previous day, and they would have to deal with a super motivated decathlon team who were looking to try and lead out Tobias Lund Andreasson, the winner in the Tanunda stage, of course, and the most consistent sprinter so far. He was wearing blue, and his team had got it absolutely spot on. There was the blue jersey back there. It would be Tord Gudmestad who'd do the final lead out again, but this time Tobias Lund Andreasson using more of his teammates deep into the stage, the swinging left-hander taking them on the rise all the way to the finish line. But there were more and more riders lined up behind Tobias Lund Andreasson on this day. Sam Watson going early, but in doing so, leading out another British rider, Ethan Vernon. Vernon's been close in this race before, and he did not get this one wrong. Once he opened up over the top of Tobias Lund Andreasson, the gap opened up, and the rider from Bedford in England got a cracking stage win. And of course a first win for the newly rebranded NSN team. There it was, Ethan Vernon ahead of, once again, Tobias Lund Andreasson, right up there amongst the best of them. Lawrence Pithy and Brady Gilmore getting the next 2 spots in 3rd and 4th. Let's watch it again here. Vernon coming from a little way back. He admitted afterwards that he'd watched the video of Brian Coquard's win here from a couple of years ago and knew that it was handy to put in a burst in the middle of the rise to the line. He did it there before the others had really got into top gear and then maintained all the way to the line. Ethan Vernon, of course, a track superstar, well used to doing a long drive to the line. Making it count there by gapping the others as they came to it too. Good ride by Lawrence Pithy, another good sprint by Aaron Gate just behind him too. And NSN delighted to get off to a winning start this season. Well, Vernon delighted, but a day in which last year's winner Jonathan Narvaez disappeared from that general classification. We do wish him our very, very best, of course. In his recovery from a nasty-looking crash, his teammate Jay Vine continues, though, in the Oka leader's jersey and will carry that into the final stage tomorrow. So an Australian on top, and this is what he and all the remaining riders will have to contend with tomorrow. A 21-kilometre lap, ridden 8 times, 1 climb each lap, and then a zip track sprints as well for the bonus seconds. Jay Vine should have this race sewn up. But this final day had an interesting sting in its tail right at the end of the race. You'll want to join us for tomorrow's race because I think it could be quite impactful. It will definitely be warm again, not quite the 40 degrees of today, but it's certainly going to be a hot one. And let's not forget, a 6th day of racing. Join us tomorrow on the Santos Tour Down Under.